Everybody, welcome back. We had a little week off, didn't we?
We did. It was a holiday, and you know what? I
Very good.
just enjoyed the holiday thoroughly, and I hope you did, and I hope everybody who's listening did. Um, and I think everyone was okay that we weren't here for 1 week, right? Doing a
Yeah,
podcast.
I think so. Kyle, just curious. By the way, I'm gonna rename you. I'm gonna rename you, not Jimmy DeGroat, Kyle Bullock. Um, what when you take a vacation, what's a vacation like for you? I, like for example,
Oh,
we had the holiday. What was it like for you?
my dream vacation right now is that I don't make decisions. I don't make any
All right.
decisions. Like we go someplace, and my wife has made all the choices, tells me where we're going, what we're doing.
Yeah.
Um, we're
Yeah.
active people, so we like to be active doing things.
Yeah.
I'm getting better about doing nothing, kind of,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
I like to not have to make choices on really much of anything. That's my
Yeah.
dream
Yeah.
vacation. That's what we did, by the way.
I love that you say, just tell me what we're doing. That's what I want so much when I'm doing, something with my wife, for example. Um, but if I can chime in a little bit, my dream it's just checking out. For example, I'm listening to a book about the Arctic excursions, excursions. World War II. Our army built an army base under the ice in Greenland, and learning all about that and how. Yeah, I like checking out of business for a while.
Yep, absolutely. When you're in it
So
all the time, you're it's like your nose is too close to the painting. You can't see it for what it really is.
yeah,
You
yeah,
just you have to do something to step back, and then you
yep,
come back to it with a renewed sense of perspective. And here was like my mantra coming into this week with clients or with people I'm working with, my staff, people getting worked up about stuff, and I go, honest question, what do you care? I don't mean that to be
right,
rude. I
right,
mean that to be like, why does this thing that you're upset about, why do you care about it?
right.
And it's meant to ask, like, what, when you have some perspective and you're enjoying life a little bit, you can come back to the work and go, I mean, why am I really getting worked up about that?
Right.
Why am I
Yep.
really getting worked up about the filing system?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, fix it or don't, or like
Yeah.
whatever, but move on. Like, is this really worth sacrificing your peace for
Yeah.
in life? Really? And if it's not, then take about 5 minutes to be bothered by it and then like move on to something that might be more worthwhile. That was my mantra to me coming into this
Yeah.
week of like, what do I care? Come on, just enjoy this thing. And
Exactly.
it helps.
Yeah.
It helps.
Love it. Great perspective. And
Well,
you have a wonderful perspective on that in earlier podcasts where we were talking about people coming in on time and things like that. And long story short of it was as long as the work's getting done, as long as they're hitting their goals, what do I care?
right.
So anyway,
Yeah.
good point.
Be willing to sacrifice some of our some of the things that we as leaders care so much about. Be willing
Mhm.
to sacrifice it and be like, whatever.
Yeah.
There's very few things in life that's actually worth losing sleep over that you can control.
Yeah.
That's what a good vacation reminds me. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's why I'm all happy today. Like, I'm
Hmm.
back from vacation. But let's
Yeah.
talk about something not
All right.
about vacations, but we were
All right.
talking for the last couple of podcasts before this about creating a management mentality
Yeah.
in a way where we're trying to help people think about how you empower someone in your organization to lead, to be a
Hmm.
manager, or how you can be empowered as a leader or a manager in your organization to truly be a manager, to truly lead
Yeah.
in that capacity. We've talked about having vision. We've talked about what really is important, right? What
Hmm.
is really in your dream as
Yeah.
an organization, and a little bit about delegating that out. Today, I want to talk about something that's pretty, it's the brass tacks. This is getting into it. And it's very straightforward, and that's measurement. Now I get made fun of on purpose. I like to make fun of myself as being kind of the nerd of the Jimmy Kyle duo. I love spreadsheets, I love measurements, I love data and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so many people who go into business or open up a company or run a business, they don't really like that. They find it droll and boring and monotonous. And I get it. I totally get it. It's not everybody's cup of tea.
Hmm.
But there's a ditch that a lot of people end up in. Okay. I would say the vast majority of people that we visit with end up in this ditch where they don't measure anything. They like, I'm just going to run the business because I've got a good feeling.
Yeah. Day to day.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've done this for so long. Here's the excuse. I've done this for so long. I know what I'm doing, right? I know how this works. This is my business. It's not yours, it's mine. And so I'm going to do it the way that I feel.
Hmm.
But if you put the brass tacks to it, there's not a measurement involved anymore. And this happens very, very frequently where we
Yeah.
just don't measure anything anymore. And that's, the nerd in me is going to say this. If you can't measure something, then you don't know whether or not it really works. You don't know how
Right. Or
successful it
doesn't
is.
work. Right. Right.
You
Yep.
don't know if it's not working. You don't know when it
Mhm.
doesn't work. You don't know how much you're leaving on the table. If you can't measure it, then you really don't know what's going on. And feelings are only reactive. So if
Yeah.
you're feeling in your business a certain way, you're only reacting to things. You're not actually proactive. You can't make
Right.
proactive decisions, good ones anyways, based solely on feelings. You actually have to have
Right.
some information. So today, Jimmy, I want us to talk about measurements, knowing that a lot of people out there either may not really like data and measurements, and or they may not have access. Like they may be a leader in the organization but not the owner of the company, and so they're going, okay, well, what can I measure that I have access to? And I
Hmm.
want to make this as simple and straightforward. So what is the very first? We're going to give people two things to measure, and as a manager and a leader of of a retail organization, what do you measure for success? What are the two measures? I'm going to give you a prompt, and I'll give me a
Yeah.
prompt. So your prompt is, if you're a manager or a leader, what would you measure to gauge the success of your team members, your individual people, whether it's the sales team, the admin team? What would you tell someone they should measure to know that their team is doing an effective job?
Well, it's if you go to a doctor, you're probably going to see a stethoscope at some time, right?
Yeah.
You're probably going to see the blood pressure cuffs. Okay. And what do those measure? Those measure numbers. You can't go to a doctor and say, this is what I'm feeling, and you get a good diagnosis. Okay. You're probably going to see this. So, but the irony of that, or the ridiculousness of that, the obviousness of that is that whenever I've been hired to go help a store, it's a very subjective. We just want to do better. And I'll ask metrics and like, what are goals? What are your this, sales per hour? What are your this? And they have no idea what those are. And so if we don't have metrics, if we don't have measuring devices to measure those, we're flying blind, right?
Yeah.
You're talking, we're just flying blind. And even a psychiatrist is going to use metrics based upon your responses. I mean, it's just common sense. So to ask me that question, I would, I would first have to and want to find out, what is the stethoscope telling us in this business? Um, for example, our sales down. Okay, top line sales are down. Well, are the same amount of customers coming through the door? Is there some big construction going on in town? Um, is are we selling the customers less, or are we just not closing as many sales? There's a lot of different factors in there. And so I don't know where to start with in terms of, how to answer that question. But I guess you would start just simply at the top is, where are sales at? How are, what's the first number I'm thinking of? Top line sales. So
Yeah.
does that answer your question?
I think it's a great start. I mean, our stethoscope, when we start with a company, I like to look at the average retail sale,
Mm-hmm.
the number of transactions, and the dollars of profit.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't notice I didn't say retail dollars sold. I
No.
said profit dollars because I don't really care what the dollars of retail are at first. I care what the profit dollars are coming. And so if we're losing margin and we're not getting the profit dollars in, that matters more than just the retail dollars coming in. That
Sure.
makes sense.
Sure.
Average
Sure.
retail tells you how much each transaction's being made for. So if those average transactions are going down, it tells me that the sales team is selling things at lesser values.
Mm-hmm.
This is a stock problem, it's a sales problem, something's going on there. And
Yeah.
then the number of transactions tells me the number of actual customers. So you could have
Yeah.
100 people come through your door every day, but if only 10 people are actually buying products, then 90 of them are not necessary to come through your door,
Right.
right?
Right.
So you could have a
Yep.
long line of people waiting for service, but only a few of them actually making a purchase. I don't need a long line for that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep. Yep.
The stethoscope, that's our stethoscope that we use. And I think you're right. Getting that official diagnosis, it helps you understand how you can coach your team. Because your team, if you just tell them top line sales are down, they panic because all they know how to do is sell.
Right. Right.
But and you can give them sales training all day, but if that's not the problem, then it doesn't matter how much they sell. If the problem was in inventory or in customers
Or margin.
or margin,
Or yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It ain't going to turn the
Yep.
company around,
Right.
right?
Yep. And we've
Yeah.
seen it all. We've seen all, all the above. And well, it's honestly, and I hate to say this, but it's easy to fix once you know
Yeah.
what the prognosis is, what the diagnosis is, so to speak, or the
Right.
problem.
Right. I mean, we have what we literally call an index, our train retail Bible that we develop of all of the different strategies that we can employ.
That you developed, you nerd.
Oh, I am a nerd. Remember, I like indexes, right? But we sit down and we talk about what those are going to be. I mean,
Yeah,
and we tailor it for clients.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think about we often do a SWOT analysis. If you don't know what that is, you guys can look up what that is. It's really helpful
Just
to
did
have
one this morning.
an
Just did one.
outside. Yeah, we had an outside perspective. No two SWOTs are ever the same. What it is another stethoscope of the company.
Yeah, right.
And we've done them with several companies, and they're never going to be the same. Based on those responses, then we develop a plan.
Yeah,
But if you're going to be a leader in an organization, especially for your people's sake, if all you've been given or all that you're giving a manager is a feeling, I want more sales, I want to turn the ship around,
hmm
I want things to be better, well, you're never going to feel it
yeah,
because you actually don't know what you're looking for. You have to give them something to measure. Without it, we'll never know if we're actually going to be successful. We just won't.
well, it's a scoreboard at a football game,
That's
right?
right.
If we don't have a scoreboard, you ain't gonna have too many participants or spectators.
Right. Yeah. And there's a fear. I think people there's a fear of measuring things in the same way. You brought up the doctor analogy. Sometimes we don't like to go to the doctor to get our blood work drawn because we're afraid of the diagnosis.
Yep,
What's the
yep,
prognosis?
yeah.
Um, and we're afraid
By the
that the
way, what's the
fatal.
difference between diagnosis and prognosis? What's
Good. I'm glad you asked. A diagnosis tells you what you're sick with, and a prognosis tells you how long you got to live. Or,
okay?
right?
Oh yeah, what's the prognosis?
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, good.
Yeah.
I knew
We're
that.
afraid that if we find out that we have something wrong with us, um, then we fall apart. It can be in an area that you think you're fine in too.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
oh, why would I mess with that? Everything looks
Yep.
fine, right? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, maybe not.
Well, I mean, one example of this that comes to mind is like our website.
Mm.
Not our website, but I mean a company's website. Yeah, we had it designed about 8 years ago and haven't really looked at it since then. We pay this company to update it and things and regularly, and um you haven't looked at it. And it's almost like, don't tell me my website's bad. I don't want to hear about it. And you know what I mean?
Right.
They don't want to know what the diagnosis is, the
Yeah,
prognosis.
there you go. Or both.
Yeah.
You know what that inspires me to then go to is we when we have a pretty fair idea about what's not working,
Hmm.
in the same way like our bodies start to feel aches and pains and it gets a little chronic and we're like, yeah, that pain shouldn't be there. I know it's something's wrong, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
In our businesses, we kind of know, I think I got a culture problem because people are pretty snippy over here, you know?
Yeah, I got to insert. There's a little humor here because you and I oftentimes will start with a client and we'll go like, "Oh yeah, that's definitely the answer," and then after a little digging, it's like totally wrong.
Right.
The problem is over here.
Exactly. Your first instinct is like the pain is the thing, and that's just a symptom.
Yeah.
There's something deeper going on. Um, I was trained in leadership um, graduate school that one of the first things to look at is actually the thing that's going well, or the thing that you think is going
Really?
well. This has two reasons. You should start measuring the thing that's going well because reason number one, I want to see how well it's doing, right? I need
Yeah.
some measure to know if I can know that it's doing well, I can put everything else in the company up against it, right? I mean, if Apple focuses on developing a great iPhone and because they know that's what they do very, very well, they will stand to profit more by making and developing and selling better iPhones than
Hmm.
they would the other products that don't people don't care about. And
Sure.
if you spend too much time on your weaknesses, you're not spending time on the thing that's actually most profitable and making it the best thing that you could possibly make it. I'd rather you
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
really good at one or maybe two things than be okay at a bunch of things.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
find the first one is like find out what the best thing is your company does. Focus your efforts on measuring that for success. The other reason is it's not perfect. So even mentioning the iPhone, there's going to be people listening to this on a Samsung or a Google Pixel and being like, yeah, trust me, I know Apple iPhones are stupid.
Hmm.
I know they don't work because they're not perfect.
Hmm.
And your best department in your company ain't perfect. I can tell you that with certainty. You just
Hmm.
won't know how unperfect it is or where your opportunities lie until you measure it and until you have somebody come along and give you perspective and say, actually, it could be way better.
Yeah.
You're leaving a lot on the table. We get our strengths up to a point where we think it's a golden idol and we don't want to touch it because if I touch it, I'll ruin it.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
opposite is true. If I go and I learn it and I study it and I critique it, I'll get better at it. And maybe I can get infinitely better at it than if I just leave it alone. So why go
Sure.
after the thing that I'm best at? Because it's the place where you stand to make the most profit.
Yeah. So okay. So somebody's listening right now and they're enjoying where they're at right now, but kind of have this feeling, I know I could do better. It should be nice to do better. I wouldn't mind having, some more profit, just some ideas. Where should somebody start to start thinking about knowing what to measure if they want to improve it?
Well, great question. I gave you three things at the start: your average retail, number of
Yeah.
transactions, and your profit dollars. In a
Yeah.
category, in a department, with a vendor, with a supplier, whatever is going well, like measure
Yeah.
those three things first. Measure it over
Yeah.
time. So you need to not just give it 12 months of measurement, you need 3 years. 3 years
Hmm.
will give you appropriate trends to see where it's actually going in an
Yep.
organization. So get
Right.
three, that takes time to do that looking up, but you can.
Yeah.
Look
You know
at,
what's interesting about that is in those three things, none of them is top line sales.
no,
None of them
No.
is top line sales, but that's usually the first thing we're all thinking of.
Yeah. And why do
So,
we care
okay,
about top line sales if profits are going up, right?
exactly.
But
Yep.
measure those three things in your best category over 3 years. Okay. And as you look at it, you're going to see a trend one way or another. It could be
Hmm.
it's going to go down, it's going to be flat, it's going to go up in one or three or all categories that I just mentioned of measurement. Then here's where I would look as a leader, and I do often. I can sit down and come up with explanations as to why it's going on, and I often do. Every once in a while, especially in areas that I'm pretty good at, I want someone to come along and to tell me why it's not working and how it could be better. And I want it to upset me. I'll give you a story.
Yeah. Okay.
I was okay in marketing for a long time. And I do mean okay. It was an area in my jewelry store that I thought we did fine. And if I looked at the data, well, rather I should say, one day I looked at the data and it was flat for like 5, 7 years flat. We spent the same amount of money, got the same number of customers. Everything's fine. It's homeostasis. And I sat down and I went, well, everything's fine. Why would I mess up the thing that seems to be working just fine? I was challenged to go out and look at it again by leadership mentor. And so I go out looking and I go, well, okay, I'm looking for someone to come along and critique this. And I got a few critiques from consultants, but none of them could tell me really what was better. They couldn't give me a benchmark. They couldn't tell me, okay, here's what you should be doing and how you get there. Some people
Hmm.
would give me these outlandish promises like, well, we'll take on your SEO marketing, but they couldn't tell
Hmm.
me, they couldn't be specific about a strategy, and it didn't sit well. Until one
Right.
day I meet somebody in marketing who did, who came along and said, I mean, you're positively mediocre. I give you a C. Okay, if you
Hmm.
think you're so smart, what's the solution? They laid it out. And then they said, if I'm wrong about it, you can fire me at any time,
Yeah.
but I'm not wrong about it because I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to get X, Y, Z results because that's where you should be. And my reaction to that was I was annoyed. I
Yeah.
was I was like,
That's okay.
how dare
Yeah.
you? I'm actually
Yeah.
good at marketing. How dare you? I'm a
Yeah.
great marketer.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And then I
Well, let me know how
slept
that
on it.
works out for you.
Yeah, yeah, right. I slept on it and I said, Kyle, over 5 years you've been flat. If you've been such a good marketer, how come it hasn't gone up?
Yep.
And the telltale
Yep.
sign was when a competitor of mine left the market and my customer numbers didn't go up. I went,
Mm.
wait a second.
Mm.
Called up this person who annoyed me and I said, I think I'm wrong. And it
Yeah.
annoys me now that I'm wrong. Let's see what you got.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
turnaround happens. So what I'm describing is a situation where you go looking at the thing you think you're good at, measure it to know if you're actually good at it, then find someone who's not afraid to challenge you and say, you're positively fine at this, but you
Hmm.
won't be forever and it will fall down eventually. And I can give you a plan that's going to work. And if I don't, and if I'm not right about it, then here's what we'll do to fix it. Some
Hmm.
guarantees, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, if I was a manager of a store, that's probably where I'd start. Best category, measure a few things, and then find someone internally or externally who's got some ideas and guarantees.
Yeah. What about our worst category? Do we do anything with that?
Yeah, I delegate, relegate, or eliminate. I
Good
mean,
point. Good
uh,
point.
usually if it's the worst performing category or it's the thorn in your flesh, you have to look at it and be like, is it really an opportunity or is it just kind of a waste of time?
Yeah.
If it's,
Yeah.
look at your average retail sales and the number of transactions, the profit dollars. If it's on the descent, is it really worth reviving? Is it a
Yeah.
major profit center of your organization?
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to give you a word. We talk to jewelers primarily, and you guys can watch what happens when I tell Jimmy, how do you feel about engraving? How do you feel about watch batteries, Jimmy?
Right.
Big knife in hand, kill it, kill it. And why do you feel that way?
But while you were talking, I wanted to interrupt you so bad because I love doing that. And then, but it's hey, let's consider not only profit, not only all that kind of things, but let's consider what takes up our people's time and
Yeah.
what takes them away from potentially performing in our best category, right? So, yeah, I'm right there with you.
And to that point, time is a great way to measure if you don't have access to things like profit. Maybe you can look at what your team is doing with their time. Create a log with
Hmm.
your people. If
Yeah.
80% of their time they should be spending on only 20% of your categories. So, like 80% of their week, they're only doing two things: calling up customers and merchandising the cases. That's it.
Yep.
If it's any more than that, then it's like off kilter, right?
Yeah. And you're
Um,
referring to their non-selling time, right?
correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I knew that. I just wanted to point it out for
yeah.
people.
But yeah, the things that don't work, the weaknesses, the things that are the thorn in your flesh, you could you could probably ditch them for good.
Yep.
Here's another story, a case in point.
Yep. Oh,
Websites.
we have tons of stories.
We got tons of stories. Websites, right? Everybody got to have SEO this, Facebook, Instagram that,
Yep. Right.
websites,
Right.
websites, websites. Got to have it all. And look, there's definitely a place for that, and there's definitely a need for that. But I can also think of at least three jewelers that I know who pull in six figures a year and they don't have a website. And 6 figures of personal income every year. They don't
Hmm.
have a website
Now you've piqued my interest.
at all. One guy I
Really?
know, one guy I know does most of that still with a business card. He might post something on Facebook from time to time. But
Okay.
and when I say that he's doing with a business card, folks, listen to this. This guy is doing this with a business card and landing young college-aged students for engagements, one of his number one sources of customers. And he doesn't
How?
have a website. He doesn't
Yeah.
have an Instagram. He has a Facebook. I think he posts from time to time. He
Okay.
doesn't have a storefront. And he's pulling six
Ah,
figures of income a year.
now you're not okay.
Now, how do you
Now,
do that? Because he has ruthlessly eliminated anything and everything that he wasn't good at. And he wasn't good at running a store. He had done it. And he goes, and he can tell you to this day, he goes, I didn't like it. I didn't want to do it. It wasn't my thing. So he got rid of all that stuff and he started doing only the one thing that he knew how to do, which was literally make jewelry and print a business card and hand it to people and talk to people. And he did. And now he's enjoying a very long, decades long career doing that.
wow,
Yeah. So
that's impressive.
all that to say, you can get rid of a whole lot more than you think you can get rid of if you're willing to sacrifice some golden idols in your business.
Right. And
But you won't
potentially
know
make
what
your
those
life
things
much
are. What's that?
happier. And potentially make your life and your employees' life much happier.
Way, but you won't know what those
Right.
things are until you measure it. There's no way.
Hmm.
You'll never know.
Hmm. Get that ruler out, folks. Get that ruler out. Yeah, if you want to know where to start, just give us a call or email us. It's you know our email address, Jimmy at Train Retail or Kyle at Train Retail. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff I love talking about because with I mean basically with simple measurements are Jimmy and Kyle's stethoscope and it's your stethoscope and and usually when you can diagnose the issue the problems are not that hard to fix.
No,
So yeah,
no.
and that's what makes it fun. That's what gets us together every day and go, man, I love working with you. It's fixing those things. That's just a blast. That's what we say to each other every morning when we see each other.
That's truth.
via video.
It's true. We're obnoxiously happy about our jobs, I think.
Exactly.
Hey, folks, listen. If you don't know where to start, if you're not a numbers person, I get it. You can't afford not to be at some point. If you're going to run an organization, if you're going to manage, you cannot only do it on feeling. You can't. Not with any level of success, not without cultural issues in your team. At some point, you have to have a stethoscope. Even if it's only once or twice per year, you have someone help you put a heartbeat pulse monitor on your business to say, here's what I'm seeing. I still try to do that in my business at least once or twice a year. I have people who come in and whop me upside the head and say, you've missed this glaring thing over here. And it's so, so helpful. So if you need someone to help you do that, that's why Jimmy and I exist. We've got a little doctor's bag that we carry around with us and pop it open and measure it for your business. So give us a message. We'd love to help you.
Going to Amazon right now, ordering that.
You're going to order a doctor's bag, aren't you?
Ordering stethoscopes for you and I, even if they're toy stethoscopes. I want it.
It's hilarious.
All right, guys, reach out to us. Our favorite thing is when you folks reach out to us and ask us questions that we can yap about here in front of everybody else, because inevitably somebody else has that same problem too. So until then, we'll see you next time.
See you.
We hope you leave this episode a little better than when you first began. If you'd like more resources to grow your business slow, steady, and consistently, check out our on-demand video catalog at trainretail.com. Or if you have a question or frustration we can help address in your business, write to us about it. We love to help solve big, ugly problems. So hit us up at kyle@trainretail.com or jimmy@trainretail.com. Good luck out there, and we will see you next time.